It was a who's who of local government leaders at the Graham County Republican Party's annual Lincoln Day lunch at Eastern Arizona College on Monday. Arizona Senator Jeff Flake was the featured speaker and talked for about 30 minutes on a variety of topics, including President Donald Trump's cabinet and Supreme Court picks, reversing legislation, Arizona water rights, and bipartisanship. Graham County Republican Party Vice Chairman Keith Alexander emceed the event.
First of all, we're impressed that Senator Flake even took the time out of his holiday schedule to come up here to Graham County and to meet with people after talking about scaling back the gray wolf reintroduction, which a lot of people are concerned about here in the area, and his new position as the chair of the water subcommittee. The really cool thing is he stayed afterwards and answered questions. I guess probably a dozen questions or so, just across the whole spectrum. And nowadays we don't get a lot of opportunities to have that face-to-face contact with our elected representative, and so we're grateful it came.
Awesome. Anything else you'd like to add about the event here at the EAC?
No, we're if I can just say this, we're very grateful that GilaValley.net came and provided this service to people. It's a great thing for the community, and we appreciate you and the Kopenickis for doing this.
But I really appreciate being here. I always love coming here because it's a return. I did go to EAC the fall of '81, just after high school and just before I went to serve a mission in Southern Africa. And I loved my time here. I got on the flight and I had booked it late because we didn't know when we were getting out, so I'm back in row 23D or something like that. And Senator McCain booked his a little earlier. He was somewhere else on the plane. I passed by him. I get back to my seat and there's a woman next to me. She said, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, John McCain is on our flight. I said, yeah, he's up there. I saw him. She goes, have you ever flown with him before? I said, yeah, once or twice. She said, do you live in Arizona? I said, yeah, I do. She said, do you travel to Washington often? I said, about as often as John McCain. And still, she didn't go any further. And she kept going on about this, and John McCain being there. And finally, the guy sitting right in front of us leans back and said, hey lady, he's the other senator from Arizona. That's my lot in life. I'm the other senator from Arizona. But it is a pleasure serving in Washington and serving with John McCain and the rest of the Arizona delegation. We really do have a good delegation. I mentioned I don't see any protesters out here. They may be later. We had them at my house on Saturday, but they've been a frequent occurrence in front of my office. Senator McCain's office is across the street a little way in Phoenix, and so sometimes they'll come and protest him, and then they'll come and protest me, and it seems to be a daily occurrence these days. The other day there were some pro-Donald Trump protesters and some anti-Donald Trump protesters on the same street in front of my office. My office commented that one group was holding up a sign that said, Jeff Flake is Donald Trump's favorite senator. That was a kind of left-leaning group, and the other group said, Jeff Flake stand with Donald Trump. And so it seems to be both sides, and you can't be in a place that's comfortable these days. But I am glad to be a conservative Republican from the state of Arizona. I think that's the most comfortable position I could be in. I can tell you I couldn't be more pleased to have a Republican president and to do the kind of things that we can do in Washington in the coming months. I've introduced legislation again this year to split the Ninth Circuit. The new 12th Circuit won't have to follow the precedents of the Ninth Circuit. And that's a big deal. And that's a change in the legislation that we've made just over the past year. But we think with Governor Ducey fully on board, the state legislature, and some of the other legislatures working as well in other states that would like to be part of this 12th Circuit, we can finally get some action on this. I did just take over the water subcommittee of the Natural Resources Committee. That's going to be really important in the coming years as we put together a drought contingency plan to deal with imbalances or shortages, particularly along the Colorado River. But we went to New York and went on the Letterman show and went on Today's Show and a few others. And Stephen Colbert ran a clip of us out there surviving. He said, Jeff Flake and Martin Heinrich proved once and for all Republicans and Democrats can get along when death is the only option. So, for what it's worth, that has been proved. But anyway, luckily in Arizona we aren't that hard up for water, but we will have to make some real plans and do some negotiations with California and the other, particularly the lower basin states. One thing we've had to do over the past year is to get the Department of Interior to agree that if Arizona water users leave water behind the dam at Lake Mead, that water won't flow into some canal in California, that whatever we leave we can claim later. And we did get assurance from the Department of Interior. We'll have to get that same assurance from the new Department of Interior, but water law is such that precedent means a lot, and we believe that we'll get that again, and then we'll have the drought contingency plan hopefully in place for the future. Arizona has done much better planning over the past couple of decades than California has done, and so we're in a much better position than they are.
After his talk, Flake took some hard questions from the audience and said he would not back an independent committee to look into President Trump's ties to Russia or the election hacking scandal because the intelligence community was already doing so.
We go too far when we go with special prosecutors and special committees. We have a structure in Congress where you have committees of jurisdiction. Right now, the Intel Committee, for example, is looking into that, as well they should. Believe me, anybody who's listened to the classified briefing about what the Russians did during the election would support an investigation. And that investigation is occurring. What I don't want to do is take it outside of the jurisdiction of the Senate and the House committees, because then it becomes politicized. It becomes politicized like, for example, the Benghazi Committee. We spent a lot of money. I never supported it to begin with because that's what special committees usually do. They become politicized. And so I'm fully confident that the committees in Congress will look into that. I do think, like I said, anybody who's looked into that, into the classified annexes and has had a classified briefing would support an investigation. But it can be done within the existing structure and not a special committee or a special prosecutor. Thank you for having me here today.
After the lunch, Flake took a moment to speak with Gila Valley Central and affirm his belief in freedom of the press.
Good to meet you.
Senator Flake, John Johnson with Gila Valley Central. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure.
I only have one quick question. Recently, Senator McCain spoke about the importance of the freedom of the press.
Right.
And how that hushing the press is kind of the first step toward being a dictatorship. And Reuters came out also saying that it's been difficult to deal with the new administration and likened it to some countries that we don't like to talk about so much. I just wanted to get your opinion on how important you think the press is.
Well, completely vital. I agree that you, with Senator McCain, you have to have a free press. That's one of the best institutions to make sure that democracy holds. So obviously, when the president during the election talked about libel laws, that got my backup, and I think anybody in the press would be concerned about that. Obviously, the president has a different relationship with the press than most previous presidents. That's fine, but as long as no moves are made to silence the press, and that hasn't been the case yet, and I don't think it will be.
Any thoughts on the border wall at all?
No, other than the executive order that was already issued said that planning would go in to build a border wall. What I think that they'll find when they start to plan this is that walls are needed in some places, they aren't in others. Fence is adequate in some places, a vehicle barrier, or simple surveillance. And so the wall will look quite a bit different than, a 2,500-mile single big cement wall. So I think they'll realize that as they go through the planning process.
Reporting from Thatcher for Gila Valley Central, I'm John Johnson.